Well, good morning and welcome to Zen Fits. So I just jump right in here, kind of like it's a little pool of living water, and I get my cup of coffee and I get my insight, and I just turn on my little iPhone here and jump right in. And I make the topic up right here. I get an idea, and the idea is we're all, and I wrote this down, we're all country. And that I've been watching the Ken Burns country music documentary. I think there's 6 episodes. Each one is 2 hours. That's a lot of country music. And it's telling the stories of the country music singers. And it's beautiful. And I got an idea. I just, when I watch something like this and I'm drawn into it, and I just dive into these very rich documentaries or movies or TV shows, or I get metaphorical insights. I get a seed of an idea that connects me to it. Je suis country music. Je suis. Remember that came out when there was the assassination or killing of the staff of Charlie's in Paris, and the people marched and the sign says Je suis Charlie. Well, Je suis means I am. So if I say I am country music, that's a metaphor. Or if I say you are country music, that's a metaphor, because you are literally not country music, but you are country music. So what does that mean? You see, it requires a leap. It requires not an objective analysis, because the objective analysis of you are country music does not answer the question of the metaphor, because you obviously, no matter how much analysis you apply, are not country music. It's kind of like Shakespeare. He says, the world is a stage. That's a metaphor. Well, if you examine the world, it's obviously not a theater stage. Yet it is. So if you know what I mean? So the metaphor creates a question. So what is the question here? You are country music. Well, let's look into it then with me. So that the documentary is all about the history of the country music singers, each of whom found their unique voice, the struggle. There's the struggle. First of all of them, I haven't found any yet that were wealthy. All of them were born in Southern poverty. And they were white, except there were a few black ones, Charlie Parker. But the majority is white, poor, Southern, suffering. I mean, dirt poor suffering, because the great country singers were born in the Depression or in the 40s, but in a time where the South was sharecroppers, poor, Okies, struggling poor. So the constant here is that poverty gave birth to country music. And 2, it was a white music. And this is why, in the study of Elvis and in the Memphis and all of the different strains, how black music came into it and created a new. So anyway, it all mixes up. Primarily, it's white music, and it's story music, and it's story about loss, suffering, loss, hopes, damage, and redemption. So these are stories of loss and redemption, and the artists live the story in the sense that they have this tremendous poverty or pain out of which they are driven to escape. So this is a Buddhist story in the sense. that Buddha, Gautama, Siddhartha Gautama, born in a rich family, experienced extreme existential pain when he stumbled upon old age, sickness, and death. Why do we suffer? Why do we suffer loss? Why do I have to suffer? Was his question. So he set out. He left his home and family and set out like a musician, like a singer, like Loretta Young, or all of these country music artists set out to find the cessation of suffering, of their suffering. And they set out on this journey because they knew that their creativity was the healing. When they were singing, they didn't suffer. When they were writing, when they were singing, when they were performing, they were free of suffering. But then when the song was over, when the lights went out, when the audience went home, they were back in their personality. Then a lot of them got into drugs, whatever, suffering, divorce, pain, sorrow. But when they were in their music, they were free. So they were compelled to create. They were compelled to write stories that came out of their suffering. And that's why the great singers were so mesmerizing and became metaphors themselves, because when you listen to a great country song of suffering, the great ones, Je suis that song. I am that suffering, and I am liberated from my own suffering in that song. So the song of Sarah, and these are stories, it's not, there's stories of suffering and loss are in themselves redemption. The music is redeeming. So it's kind of like the artist takes the worm of suffering in their soul, puts it in a bottle, which is their song, and puts it out there. And when you hear that song, you go into that bottle that the artist has, the lightning bug or the worm becomes a lightning bug. And it lights you up with joy and sorrow. And so this is compassion. In Buddhism, compassion is liberation. And compassion is the elixir, the mix of suffering and joy. Like when I was doing martini times, you mix gin and vermouth and you make a martini. When you mix sorrow and joy, you make compassion or art or country music. So country music is compassion, the elixir of joy and sorrow, which are incompatible. So in our personal world, in our suffering world, on the wheel of samsara or the world, we chase joy and run from sorrow. So we're running away from pain and running towards pleasure. We run toward, I want that joy. I always see that commercial. I want that. They're so happy and joyous in that commercial. I want that. Give me that soap. If I get that soap, I'll be joyous like those people washing in it. So that's what the commercial does. Commercials, you see, don't sell redemption, they sell soap. Pretending is redemption. But country music, the art of country music, is redemption because the music is redeeming for the artist and for the listener who can say, Je suis that song. So when you say, see, this is sound. Music is sound. Music is sound. And the Hindus, the Eastern philosophers, say the world is sound. The world is sound. So the world is music. Any artist, any musician knows that the world is music. And when they are lost, when they create their music, they become the music. And we all enter into it with them. So they become like an alchemy. So the musician is an alchemist who takes sorrow of the world. My phone just rang, so I don't know if I was cut off or not.